Good evening. Welcome to Let's Live with Thurman Greco, brought to you from scenic downtown Woodstock, New York, on Channel 23 Educational Television. And my name is Thurman Greco, and we have a wonderful guest with us who has not been here in months, and now she's here, and it's great because everybody is so excited to welcome Fiona.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm here.
Fiona, what has been happening with you lately?
Well, you know me with the readings is what I do. I'm a clairvoyant. And I've been working every day, literally every day. I have one day off a week, Tuesdays, and I'm in my shop, Fiona, and I take appointments for readings, and people come, and they really come. I'm actually booked into the new year.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm booked ahead. But with me, I only do one or two a day, so I'm quite fortunate. It's been hard because in 2023, as you may know, some of you know that my husband David passed away, and that caused all kinds of emotions, obviously, and grief. And also I had a little bit of a time of a lack of faith. So that's why I haven't been around, but I'm back now. I have faith. I'm believing in stuff again, which is important since I'm a spiritualist and a clairvoyant. So, but for a while I was like, maybe there isn't anything. So that's why I stayed away.
Fiona, do you think that when you are a psychic, when a person is a psychic, and they expect things of themselves and those around them expect things from them,
Yes.
and then they have a sudden disaster without any preparation, and they begin to question what's happening, I think it's a universal reaction.
I think it is, and the funny, it's a weird word to use, but the thing with my situation is that David died so suddenly that he left us really by surprise, and annoyingly he died on our son's birthday, which really kind of, I'm still a little annoyed at that, even though he couldn't help it really, but there goes birthdays for my son. But the thing is that because we had studied the psychic arts, and we studied theosophy, and we studied spiritualism, even though he wasn't as involved as I was, he worked with crystals mostly. The thing is that I was like, where are you? Where are you, David? I didn't see him. I didn't feel him. It was like, I felt like, I guess there's nothing there. But considering the personality that he was, he loved the Tolkien books. He loved the Arthurian books. And I always feel like the reason he hasn't come back to visit is because he's on a big adventure. He went to Middle-earth or Camelot. And it must be a way nicer place than here because he never came back to visit. But in a way he has, and I want to bring this up. In my shop, David had crystals. And he was so proud of his crystals, and I always felt like, you don't need crystals for anything. It's like, it was just something that people clutched onto if they felt that they needed something beyond themselves. Well, all of a sudden, people were coming into my shop last year, and up to the present, and saying stuff like, I really need a crystal. And I'd be like, oh, I know what one to get you. And I was going through the boxes and giving them crystals, and they're like, you're giving me these? And I'm like, no, I'm not. David is. And they're like, who's David? My dead husband. So David was still actually selling more crystals in the afterlife than he did here. But it was interesting because I felt compelled to give out the crystals to everybody. And I don't think it was me who was giving the exact crystals to the people who really wanted them. I think it was David. That's how he comes through. That's how he came through.
Well, he was knowledgeable of the crystals.
He was knowledgeable, and I was not.
And he was connected to them.
He loved the crystals. And so when people were coming into the store, as of now, I still give crystals out, and I feel that's him. But I still haven't seen him. but it's okay. He's busy on a big adventure somewhere. And it's all good. It's all good. I do believe, obviously, because of what I do, yeah, we go on. We're not gone. We're always connected to our loved ones. And it's interesting that the show tonight is so close to Halloween, when the veils are very thin. And I've always heard that my whole life. My grandmother was from Transylvania, so she would tell me a lot about this stuff, and which is an interesting place, by the way. And the thing with that is the veils being thin. I made a point all these years never to do readings on Halloween, so I always take the day off. It's the history of Halloween, just briefly, is very interesting because it was a pagan festival, Samhain, and also called All Hallows Eve. And when the Rome came and the Catholic Church wanted to take that, so they turned it into All Saints' Day, November 1st, and then All Souls' Day, November 2nd. But actually, we still celebrate Halloween, and people who wear masks and go out, and it's always been a way in the old days, so the spirits of the ghosts and fairies and demons don't recognize you. That's why people wear masks. And they put out treats for the people who have died. And if they don't get the treats, they might play tricks on you. That's where the trick or treat comes from. I think, like everything else, the history has been, dissolved because of what we consider Halloween. It's a very spiritual time, and it's said that the ancestors and the spirits of the deceased come to visit.
Oh, do they really?
They do, and that's why in Mexico they have the Day of the Dead. It's right there because they put out places, food and drink and everything for their beloved dead. So I think we have to realize that the spirits around us, all they want is to be remembered and paid tribute to. That's really what it is. They just want people to remember them and know that they could be helpful to us. And by the way, I don't think heaven's that far. I think it's right here. If we call upon a loved one, they're here for us. No.
So that's what happens when people come and see you?
Yeah.
And they call upon a loved one?
If they don't come, if the spirit doesn't want to come, if the soul doesn't want to come, they will not. We don't want to call on anybody who is uncomfortable with coming back to the world. There are many people or spirits during readings who just say, I'm done. I don't want to talk to anybody down here. But then another obscure relative would come through, or an animal, a pet, and often by name. And I've always done this. I've been doing this for like 40 years now.
So what happens is the people come in and say they want to talk to Aunt Martha.
Yeah, but if
Aunt Martha's not in, no?
Actually, they don't come and ask for Aunt Martha. They just sit with me, and whoever comes through, comes through. Whether it's Aunt Martha, Cousin Henry, the dog that you had when you were 17, that comes through. But we don't call on anybody, because that would be like demanding that they come back, and we don't want that.
Do you ever get a person at your table who you're waiting for the spirit and they say, well, this is Cousin Frida, and the person looks at you and says, I don't want to talk to her.
Yes. That actually happened to me recently. I was in, I don't know if I ever told you this story. I was in the Garden Cafe a few months ago, and a woman came to me and said, I'm a psychic medium. She says, and I have a message for you. Your mother is sitting across the chair from you. And I said, I don't want to talk to her. I got up and I left. It was difficult with me and my mother. I said, I don't want to talk to her. And the woman looked at me horrified, because of course everybody wants to talk to their mother and father. Not me. And I just got up and I left, and it was kind of funny. I felt like, wow, the one time anyone ever came to me to tell me something, I got up and walked out of the restaurant. about the garden.
Well, but that makes a lot of sense because she didn't follow protocol.
No, she didn't. Well, I am not one of those spiritualists or mediums, whatever you want to call, who go up to people and give them unsolicited advice. I would never do that. You know, like people go, oh, I have a message for you from this. No, a person sits with me, and whoever comes through, and if they don't, they don't. But it's past, present, and future all at one time. It's like time is not linear. I feel it's very scientific, actually. I think it's quantum physics that all time is happening at once. So if a person sits with me, I could see past, present, and future. And sometimes, frankly, there are some people who come, don't get anything from, and they have to, I'm like, I'm sorry, this didn't work. But if you're open and if you believe, more stuff comes through. But I don't want to talk to them about any relatives before they sit down. I don't want to know anything about them. And the hardest readings to do are people that I know. I wouldn't. The people closest to me, I've never done a reading for.
Yeah, somebody was telling me several years ago, never go to anyone you know.
Oh God, never go to anyone you know. And I would never do a reading for anyone that was really close to me or I loved. And that's kind of like interesting too, because I never did a reading for David, but I was always afraid of him passing unexpectedly. But I didn't want to go there because I was thinking, oh, that's just our mortal fear. But he did. So, but I didn't want to see it in a reading. I don't want to do readings for people like that. It just, if the information comes through, I consider myself like a transistor radio. I get messages and I just say what I get. That's all. And I think, really, everyone can do it if you tune into that part of your brain. The left brain is the old brain. It's the brain down here. I remember always saying in interviews with you that I hear stuff down here, and then I did some research into it. I don't know the physical name of that part of your brain, but in the old days, in medieval times, they called it the old brain, where all the psychic information comes from. And it's always on the left side, and it's always down here. We all have it. We all have it. So it's really interesting to do. I like to see the history of things and go back and, like, you know, study why things work the way they do.
You know, because of what I do, I talk to people a lot who do not know me. They have no expectations, whatever. And a lot of them mention that they have problems with their mother. I mean, that's
a big deal.
Really common.
There's so many.
It's
There's
really
so
common. And years ago, I had, when I had my second baby, was in Oklahoma City. The head of pediatrics there was the pediatrician that we ended up using. And he said, you know, motherhood is very easy. You don't have a book of instructions. You just do whatever you think is okay, and the kids grow up.
Huh.
Okay, all right, so that's fine. But there are so many people that I encounter through the weeks and through the months who have problems with their mothers.
They do.
So mother is now deceased. She's in the great beyond.
Yeah.
And the daughter is, you don't know her name or whatever, but she's at your table.
Mm-hmm.
And do you ever get this mother? And,
Yeah.
and then the daughter says, I
don't want to talk to them. Because I feel like with everything else, just with us here as human people, spirits too have to evolve. And just because you die, that doesn't make you an angel. Just because you pass, that doesn't mean you're all forgiving and all light. I think that if a spirit doesn't work on themselves and their own vibration, they're not going to come through that nice. And we don't want that negativity from the living or the dead.
Okay, so you have a person at your table, and she has come and she hasn't said who she wants to talk to.
We never.
And then so now a deceased person has come and she doesn't want to contact that person. So then what do? What's the next step? Do you go on to somebody else?
No, I just see what comes through, and I'm fine with telling them, and not to the deceased, it's not their time to talk. Basically, nice way of saying, go away.
Well, but then after you've done that, does someone else show up?
Sometimes, not
Do
all
you
the
call
time.
in someone
No, we
else?
never call in anyone. I would never call in anyone, because that's bordering on necromancy. Necromancy is having control of the dead and making them do your bidding, and I would never do that. We don't call on anybody. I mean, it's other psychics work different ways. I don't follow the rules of the other psychics. I'm the black sheep of the psychics. I do things my own way, and I can never. I don't do it their way, and that's why I appreciate that the people who do use the tarot, you're very knowledgeable in that. But I don't want to use anything that keeps me focused on one thing. My mind is like flying from one thing to the next. I don't use anything.
So you're better off being
Just free and sitting there and tuning into the person. It's funny because usually people who have the kind of job I have, which I am grateful for, they meditate. I can't meditate. My brain is on fire all the time. They pray. I don't pray. I pray for the highest forces to come through, spirit of the highest force come through. But I'm very I could have rock and roll music playing, person walks in, music goes off, and we sit down there and I'm able to jump into being Fiona. And that's how it is. There's no ritual, there's nothing like that. My brain just goes from almost like one identity to the next. It's
you
kind
go
of
through
weird.
a door.
Yeah, the portal opens, and the portal.
That's wonderful.
And the words come pouring out, and everybody who comes records the session. I like them to record it, because sometimes a lot of names come by that we don't know who they are necessarily. Then I'll find out that, yeah, that was my cousin Hector from somewhere, The problem I have with what I do is pretty much I'm doing something that is considered a very, very interesting thing, but I've been doing it so long that to me it's every day. It's not so earth-shattering for me. It's not so wow, that was incredible. It's yeah, that happened. Let's move to the next one. I'm a little jaded because I've been doing this for so long. I must admit that. It's okay, somebody's mother just came by. Okay, let's see what happens with the next person. I think I lost a little bit of a sense of wonder.
That's all right.
And I could admit that.
That's
because
it's expertise. You've developed some expertise.
It's a sort of thing it's not every day. It's not an awe-inspiring, jaw-dropping thing. It's sort of this is what I do, and yeah, that was nice. And thing is, I never remember who comes. If they were coming, if I met these people on the street the next week, they're oh, I had a reading with you. I'm when? They're last week. I have no idea who they are.
I have that phenomenon too.
Do you have that too?
I do. I had a woman come to my desk. I come to my table several weeks ago, and I just casually say, "And how long has it been since you've had a reading? A tarot reading? Just kind of trying to get the sound of their voice and get them comfortable."
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, I was here 2 weeks ago." I swear I had never seen her before.
I have no idea. And that's kind of funny in this small town, because I'll walk through the town and everyone's Fiona, Fiona. I'm looking thinking, I don't know who any of these people are.
Right.
They all know my dog Ghost, though. Everyone knows Ghost.
Well, that's fine. Ghost makes herself available.
She makes, and
but
she gives
I
hugs
think
and
it's
kisses.
important not to be.
Well, I think that we're somehow, with this kind of work, we're somehow blessed by having those memories taken away.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to carry everyone's sorrow. There's so many people who just come up to me and cry all the time. People I don't even know. I had a situation with an elderly man at the flea market a few weeks ago who had a booth, a lovely booth. He was a lovely man, and I was just trying to look at some leather bags, frankly. That's all I was doing. Ghost was with me. He looked at Ghost, and he started to get teary-eyed because his dog had recently died. Okay, and the next thing I know, he's in my arms sobbing because his son had recently died a year ago. And I don't feel I look like a soft person that people would want to come up and like tell their life story to. It always happens. People end up crying in my arms. I did buy some leather bags, so that was nice. He was lovely. But it's just like, it's so funny, like people sense it. He didn't know who I am or what I do, but he had to tell me, and there he was. So I get that a lot.
Wow.
I get people coming up and just like telling me things and then walking away, and it's like, this is really bizarre. It's weird. It's weird even by my standards, because I've seen a lot of weird stuff. I've been in a lot of weird places with people from here to England to Australia to New Zealand, and it's always odd to me that people come up and say the stuff they do. Yeah. And I'm blessed, but at the same time, it's like, wow, it's heavy energy sometimes. So
Yes.
what I like to do is just walk through the flea market and with Ghost and just say hi to everybody.
And Ghost likes to visit with everybody.
Well, Ghost wants to kiss
Yes.
everybody, honestly. So it's important on days when I have readings that I take walks and go back to nature and do things like that. I don't, I think I'm a spiritualist that's not particularly religious, or maybe not as spiritual as I should be, but I am in fact a spiritualist. And I believe in talking to the energy left behind, the echo of the people left behind. I don't have to talk to the high-level spirits or the deities or the angels or anything. I like to talk to the often underwhelming dead, because nobody else does sometimes. Everyone's always grasping for the ascended masters. I like to talking to old Joe in the graveyard.
Yeah.
I like to visit them. I don't need to talk to an ascended master. They come to me. They always have since I was a little girl. Just to say, I'm here.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
Because if you're willing to go where the spirits are.
Yeah, I'm not afraid at all.
Right.
Never afraid of spirits. People, humans, yes. Yes, I am. So, always have been that way. Yeah. And it's been like this since I was a little girl. I would see people in my room as a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, and start talking to what was there. And they weren't really people. They were spirits. And there's nothing that can, I spent my whole life doing what I do, and there's nothing that can dissuade me and tell me that it's not real, because of course it is. I've been doing it for so long.
Well, I think that if you say to yourself and say to the world that you are not a particularly religious or spiritual, you are where you need to be.
Exactly. And I'm fine with that. I
And
mean,
if this works for you?
Yeah, this works for me. I mean, I do believe in angels, I believe in spirits, but I'm not religious in the traditional sense whatsoever. Nature is my religion. And animals and trees and the forest, and that's it. You know, and I think that we all carry the God force or the goddess force in us. We don't need any outside thing. So it's I kind of go to off the beaten track a little bit with my beliefs than other people, but that's why I do what I do. My own way. My way. I did it my way. I do it my way.
That's what works for you.
Yeah, it does.
That's how it goes.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
So, do you ever, when a person comes to your desk, your chair, table, or whatever, do you ever find yourself looking into the future and seeing things beyond this person?
Yes, often. Because past, present, and future all happens at once. So a person cannot sit with me without me getting flashes like this. It's not a long drawn out thing. It's like flashes of their childhood, flashes of the future, flashes of where they're going to end up. As far as I'm concerned, I can't predict anything that isn't already happening on another time loop. It's already happening. The future is there. It could change on its own, but this is the most, if like today, a girl came in and I had to tell her that I believe that the man she's building a house with is not the one she's going to be with 3 years from now. Boy, they don't like to hear stuff like that. But she asked. And my feeling about that was like, in the future, I see you with someone else, not him. And but it's all a learning experience. And she looked at me and said, I know, you're right. She says, I know he's not the one. So it's all, is it predestined? The future is there now. The future's now. So it's
But if the future is now, that's not predestination, is
no.
it?
Well, no. I think we're just tuning into another time loop where the future could be seen. Otherwise, predictions wouldn't work at all.
Right.
So I think I could only access them, or anybody who does what I do can access them, because they're already happening. The future's already happening. All time is happening at once. That's why I always go into this quantum physics thing that I really don't quite understand myself, but I believe it so strongly. I believe that all time is happening at once.
It has proven itself to you.
Yes, it has proven itself, and it's free will plays a part in it, but it's all time, is there. What we assume, what we envision, what we can prophesize for ourselves, it's there already. So it gets very heady and it gets very deep when I talk to people with what I do.
Listen, I don't think it gets all that deep.
Mm-hmm.
People come because they want to know the future.
If you know how many,
and that's what turns up.
Turns up. The future's there. There's very few people. I mean, it's not like anything is really ever scary, which is kind of interesting. Maybe there's disappointments, but there's not any ever terrible events happening in these people's lives. It's like, yeah, that person might pass, or this may happen, but just try to avoid, like, going to a country that's dangerous or whatever. That, I don't like to prophesize bad things happening to people, because that puts it into their head that it may happen. There's always the story, and it's in my book too, about the young man who came to me before he got his driver's license. And he was like 16 years old, and his name was Jake, I think. And he was like, I'm going to get a license. And when I looked at it, I was like, no, you shouldn't get your driver's license. He did, and he died as a passenger in a friend's car. Like 2 months later, his mother contacted me. But I saw like something with a car. How do you tell a teenager not to get a license?
Right.
He was a passenger, so prophecies like that are they're scary, they're upsetting. I didn't tell him an accident was going to occur. I said, be very careful when you're driving. And sure enough, that happened. So that's why I get upset with stuff like David dying like he did. I feared it, but I didn't know it. I was surprised. It's a big surprise.
It's also how you communicate also.
Yes.
Because I know that many years ago, I was working in a food pantry, and things were just really not working out. And so somehow I ended up talking to somebody. I don't know how, I've forgotten the details, but there he was. And he said to me, he said, there's 2 food pantries here. Right. But he did not communicate, and I didn't ask, what do you mean by 2? Do you mean 2 side by side?
Yeah, what
do you mean
did he
2?
mean?
He meant one after the other.
Oh.
And so then when I moved out of town to the other food pantry, his prophecy came true. But he didn't see that shift in time.
Well,
he just saw 2.
No, well, that's the other thing. Often in readings, because of the way I do them, it's like putting a jigsaw puzzle together. I don't know why I'm saying what I'm saying. It might not make sense at all, but I say it. And then the person who comes, the client, reassures me that what I said makes sense to them. I don't know what I'm talking about most of the time.
Right.
I just sit there and let the words come and the pictures come in my head.
Right.
You know?
And so sometimes what you see, because you see a flash, you see a moment in time, you don't see the full
You don't see the
2 years or 5
No.
years or whatever. You just see this moment.
Anybody who says that they could prophesize exactly, it's not real. You can't. You could just get bits and pieces and put the puzzles together.
Plus, I think that you can see something happening, but there's always stuff happening in the wings
Yes.
that
Yeah,
can
that
shift
could change
this.
it. Like,
This can shift something over here or up here, or
Yes.
it's the event. The event is going to happen, but
Well-
it did get changed.
it gets changed, and time is so bizarre because it doesn't work out like we think. It's not at all linear. So, I mean, there will be people out there who'll see this and say, that's crazy. Well, works for me. I don't know.
Maybe it is crazy.
Maybe it is crazy, but crazy has done me
Well,
very good through the years.
Is it not true that if you are a human being, you work in a linear fashion?
Yes.
And when you're dealing with the future or the past, that is not linear.
No, it's not, because
So it's two different physics.
yeah. It is quantum physics, no matter what. I mean, there are people who come to me that if I try to check or look at them as children, and it's interesting because this doesn't happen quite often, but when it does, sometimes I can't see a childhood at all. And usually those people have been abused, or usually they shut down something around them, and it's not coming out that there was even a childhood. It's like it's blocked. They blocked it. And I mean, yeah, of course, everybody supposedly has a childhood, but some people just are like, no. When traumatic events occur, you could easily block it out. And that comes across in readings too. It makes it impenetrable. I can't see that. I can't see their past. They're protecting themselves. Their energy field is protecting anyone from going in there. And then there are some people, I don't know why they would come if they don't believe in this kind of thing, and they sit there like this. I get nothing. And I'm like, I'm sorry, there's nothing. And they're like, what do you mean? That you can't tell me anything? I'm like, no, can't tell you a thing. They're blocked. There has to be some kind of belief in order to come.
Permission.
Permission it was not granted for me to see. So it was interesting. One of the hardest psychic things that was ever put upon me was I was in New Zealand, and a woman had arranged a party for me to go to do readings. All day I was actually sick because I didn't want to do this so badly. There was something off about it. When I got to the party, I realized it was a group reading, and I realized I couldn't even talk. I felt like nauseous, and I couldn't talk, and everything I said just kind of like they were just staring at me blank. It turned out the host of this party got a bunch of non-believers together and put me to do readings for them. And I felt like it was killing me because I was sitting there babbling like an idiot.
So what did you do?
I got up and walked out.
Good for you.
And I was in New Zealand, by the way, so and nobody was around me. So it was close, So I was on a book tour in New Zealand. And wow, that was a nightmare to me because I felt like the testing was so awful. I mean, Not one person was a believer. And therefore, nothing was released.
You know, that is an interesting thing. You work without a net.
Nothing.
You're right there.
Nothing. And if I
And when I read the tarot cards, I've got a net.
well, the tarot
Those
has been around
cards are
thousands
right
of
there.
years.
Right, but they're right there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when I have somebody that's sitting like
Oh
this,
my God.
I can always start talking about the cards.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. No, there's
And
nothing.
eventually that will loosen them up.
And because
But
being human, I start getting shaky and panicky when you can't reach somebody. And there are people that have come to see me and will still come to see me that I don't want to ever see again because of the energy from them. What do? All animals know. Ghost is amazing at finding out who is allowed to sit with me and who isn't. There have been people who have come in, taken a seat, Ghost is snarling at them, little ghost. Animals know. And then I had to say at least 3 times, I'm sorry, I just can't do this. And she's like staring at them with her hackles raised. There's a reason.
oh, you have to trust her.
Animals, 100%.
Oh, yes.
All animals, but she is very protective of me, and I have her in the store with me all the time.
Oh, she must be. She must be on guard the whole time.
She's on guard because not only do we have the human people coming in, we have the spirits that come.
You know, I think that's one of the reasons why Ghost is so delighted.
Yeah, to be
at the flea.
Yeah.
Because people are more carefree.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
people that have the booths, they've been coming there for years.
Yeah, it's so
Each
nice.
one has his or her own story.
Exactly.
And there's no real pretense there.
Nope.
Because
She loves it, and I love it too. That's why I go in the morning.
if somebody comes to the flea market and gets a booth and they're not on the up and up,
It
we
feels
all
different.
know it.
You feel it. You
Yeah.
absolutely feel it.
Very quickly. So Ghost is very comfortable
She's very
in that
yeah.
surrounding.
We're happy on the weekends. I'm going to miss it so much. The flea market's closing. We would go and literally frolic and just be mindless.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it, because the rest of the day I'm in there communicating with everything. I don't know, everything. And it's one day it's going to end for me. One day I'm going to do my last reading, because it's been a
Really?
long time. It's been a long time, and I could think back to when it began. I never quite enjoyed it, but I always felt like it was my job. It's like I never asked for it. Hence, my book was called The Reluctant Psychic. I never wanted it. This was ridiculous to me, you know, and yet I did it. I was doing it and got popular, and that's how I do it. That's how I do it. But one day it's going to end, and I don't know when exactly, but I would say in the next few years.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's going to end, because it's a lot. It's a lot, and I just want to live with a bunch of animals in the woods.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Away from people.
One of the probably the happiest time of my life was my 5th decade. I was in my 50s, and I spent 10 years rescuing dogs and
Oh,
cats
that's beautiful.
whose owners had died.
Oh, that's nice. That's
And
very
they were all, every animal had to be over 10 years and under 10 pounds. And they all came into my house.
Oh,
And
that's
I
beautiful.
lived in a neighborhood where the rules were you couldn't have more than 2 pets. Well, at any given
Forget
come
that.
on, 15 or 20, forget the 2. I couldn't even, But I lost a lot of my vocabulary
You didn't
because
need it.
I wasn't
You
talking
didn't need
that
it.
much.
You talk to them the way you talk.
Right. And we were with each other, and they knew that we were all trying to find a place for them.
Oh, they knew you were helping them.
And when the time came when the right person, when a person came to the door, the dog or the cat that was supposed to go with that person got up out of their bed and walked to the door.
Absolutely.
And I never said, hey, Snuffy, this is the one. You know, they just
know.
went.
They know who to go to.
I didn't have to talk to them.
No.
That was
know.
such a glorious, magical time.
That sounds wonderful. There was, when I was growing up, there was a movie called Thomasina, and it was a Disney movie about a woman, a cat who had passed, but there was a character in it that was this lovely witch woman that lived in the woods and took care of animals. And when I was a little girl, I'm like, that's what I want to be. That's who I want to be. That's all I ever wanted to be. That's all it ever was. And I think ultimately that's what's going to happen. I don't, this has been a lot. It's been a lot. There's suicides, there's deaths. I mean, the saddest thing is the rash of young people that are coming, well, their mothers come to me. Young people are killing themselves for the weirdest reasons. A woman takes her son's phone away on a hike and he jumps off the Bear Mountain Bridge. I mean, this is the type of things I'm hearing, and I'm like, this is crazy. Because she took his phone away, he dove off of a bridge. You know, I mean, there's a lot of issues with suicide and drugs and overdoses, and it's just too much. I don't want to hear it anymore.
Do you think that one of the reasons why it's happening is because there are just so many of us?
Yeah, I think there's too many people.
I really do.
I think the world cannot hold any more people, but unfortunately, some of the ones that are leaving should not have left. You know, the hardest thing becoming a widow was when people would come up to me and say, it was his time. No, it wasn't. We'd like to think that people die, they choose their time, or they were called by something up there. Sometimes the body just deteriorates and dies like a car running out of gas. And that was always in my mind, like, no, sometimes it just breaks. It just breaks, and that person does not want to be gone. And that's something that I've come to realize for myself, but also for people who are coming. It's very easy for them to say, well, God called him. No, I don't believe that. I think the body just broke down. There's a part of me, for all the things that I do, I'm actually very, maybe cold or very clinical. Sometimes the body just breaks and you can't revive them and they're gone. And it's not God calling, it's not going to a better place. I think the best place is here. I don't want to go anywhere else. I like it here. But I'll tell you, if I die, I'm reincarnating and coming back and doing it all over again. Maybe I wouldn't be a psychic, though. I'd just take care of animals.
I know that when I was doing the rescue, it was out of my home, and I was in suburban Washington, D.C.,
Wow,
and surrounded by, it was just, so I spent a couple of weekends on the road with my spouse trying to find a piece of land that had a building or two, and I was unable to do it.
It's hard.
I could not, and we kept going out and looking and coming up zip. So I finally said, okay, I can't find anything. It's not coming to me. This is it. But so you just kind of have to work with what you can.
What you get.
But by the same token, I have a friend. I studied animal communication at Spring Farm Cares with a woman who opened an animal communication rescue place in the Carolinas. And every once in a while, she does a newsletter. And in this newsletter, she will talk about the moment of death for several of her animals. And what you have said is very correct. Here is an animal who's in a field. She's a sheep or a goat or an alpaca or whatever. And she's happy with her family.
Yeah, she's happy.
But something happens, and she can't
survive.
She cannot survive, and the animals have a way of looking at her and telling her, this is my time.
Yeah.
I am going to go. Don't do any
Don't do anything
heroic
here.
measures. This is it.
Yeah.
The body has broken.
The body breaks. And that's what I feel with a lot of people around us. Body breaks. Technology, medicine right now, they can keep us going for years. But if it's not quality of life, I don't want it. You know, it's just, I am tired of people who are, maybe hitting the middle age or a little older, who will be like, oh, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go. Why?
I hear a lot of that.
I hear that every day. Some of my dear friends say it. They're like, oh, I want to go. Why would you want to go? I want to be here forever.
Where do you want to go?
There isn't any place except here. There's different planes of here.
But I mean, like people tell me, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah,
and I
hear
ask
that
them,
so
I say,
often.
well, where?
Where are you going to go?
And how are you going to manifest this? What kind of a death are you going to bring about?
And what do you think you're going to? I mean, I'm different than a lot of other people regarding heaven and all that, because I feel like if we're needed here, we'll stick around with our relatives. But there aren't any jobs in heaven. There aren't any tangible things. You don't eat, you don't live, really. You're dead, pretty much. And I think you have to make the most of the life you have here, because there's nothing to go to. Maybe you'll see your relatives again, I'm sure you will, but it's not what I was taught in the Catholic. And I don't go with the whole thing. Oh, we'll go up there and you'll be reunited and everything will be okay. I think you have to work on it, and spirits will come to you and talk to you and be around to be helpful. So I do believe, but it may be a little bit different than what other people do. I don't want to go to heaven and see my relatives. Good God, no. I just want to see my pets.
Right, exactly.
I just want to see my pets.
Because my question is, well, if I'm going to go to heaven and I'm going to be met, what if that one, I'm not sure about her or him.
I don't want to see them.
Do I want to continue with this?
No, I don't want to agree with that. I think that every religion, whatever you believe is what you get. And there's multitudes of variations with that. And when you die, that's what you get. If you believe in this, you believe in angels with harps and stuff like that, that's what you'll get. I prefer to be here and see who comes. I was thinking of one thing, hospice work or death doula work with animals, to help them when they pass, not to be afraid. Often I've had friends who have pets who say that they can't be with the pet at the time of death. I like to hold their pets when they pass, because I think that the animal doesn't ever want to be alone. It's scary. Death is scary. So I have held animals, I've sung to them, I've been with them until they pass, even when their owners can't. People, I have not been with a person dying. They usually die when you walk out of the room for some reason. I've never been with a dying person. But dying animals, yes, and I like to help them cross.
Well, I think that the process is the same for the humans as it is for the pet. I teach a thing called end-of-life Reiki.
Oh.
Which does acquaint people with what happens at the moment of death. And it's different from other Reiki classes, because in other Reiki classes you spend all of your time doing this.
Yeah.
And in the end-of-life Reiki you spend time doing different things.
Releasing them, maybe?
Yes. And I do feel that when the person is ready to go, that it's helpful to say, okay, that's okay.
It's
because
okay
so
to go.
Many
they hang
because
on
so
forever.
many families.
They don't want to die to disappoint their relatives.
Oh.
it's death should be your chance if you want to go. Just go.
I,
You know.
I, at one point in my life, I had, I knew a person who was, approaching the end of her life, and she was asking somebody, she was asking everybody, well, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And of course, nobody would really come clean, and she told me, nobody will tell me, but I want you to tell me. So I went home and I thought about it, and I came back with a list of all the things that happen as they happen. And I gave her the list. And that was so helpful to her.
I'm sure it was.
To know what the path was going to be. Yeah. So she was much more comfortable. And animals, because they remember their past lives.
Yes.
It's much easier.
There's the biggest questions that people have, except for coming and talking about love and money, which is paramount. Everybody wants that. Is why are we here? Is there life on other planets? And what happens when we die? The three big questions, and I think the answers are right around us all the time. We're here to make our lives and people's lives better, and to grow spiritually, emotionally, and to help people, but also help yourself. Is there life on other planets? Oh yeah. Yes, there is. I absolutely believe that we're being observed all the time, and maybe they don't like what they see. And what happens when we die, I think it depends on what you believe, and that's what you get. No fear, though. There shouldn't be any fear. No fear at all. So it's been interesting through the years. I come up with so many conclusions with this. It's different for everyone, though, but yeah. And life is pretty wonderful. I can't imagine taking your own life, but I know a lot of people do. So there we go.
Well, for people who are contemplating suicide, there is this part who wants to end it all, wants to end it all because it's gotten too complicated. Yeah. And then there's this other part who wants it to continue, but it's too complicated to continue. So you try to end it all.
Yeah. The spirits who have committed suicide or overdose themselves in some way, not accidental, that's different. They always feel guilty for the loved ones here. They always, to me, it's kind of like on a hamster wheel. They're going, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have left like that. And often, not 100% of the time, they're embarrassed to come through because they realize they left a bit of a mess behind with the people that they love. Are they at peace? I don't believe they are. I know people would like to hear, oh yes, they're at peace now. If you take your own life, I don't think you're really at peace. But that's just me and what I've observed. They're very, very wanting to forgiveness. So, careful what you expect.
If a person who has passed on comes, you have a person at your table.
Yeah.
And then you have a person who has passed on who asks for forgiveness.
Yeah. They do. They tend to forgive them.
Do they really?
Yeah, they do. Everybody forgives. Yeah.
And how does it change the deceased person's
I think the deceased can move on. I think they can move to a higher level of vibration. I think it's all about energy, it's all about vibration. And if a person was nasty in life, chances are they're going to be nasty in death. If they were kind, they're going to still be kind. They want to help those left behind. Do they learn? Yeah, there's always learning. There's always learning. But, not everybody has to forgive their relatives. It's hard to forgive sometimes. We're not all saints. As much as we might like to, some people I'm not going to forgive, and that's how it is. I just don't think about them. Don't dwell on it. let them do their own thing in the afterlife.
Well, you know, as I get older and I meet more and more women who have grown children and grown grandchildren, they have children and grandchildren that don't want to have anything to do with them.
Yeah, that's a lot of that happening. That's really sad. That's really sad. We have our soul families, seldom the ones we're born into. Believe me, seldom the
Oh,
ones we're born.
really?
Oh my God. The people that we choose to love are, I believe, our real families. Blood relatives, I don't know. Maybe other people are luckier with that than I am.
Well, that's very encouraging then.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that if you have a child who has gotten lost
Yeah.
because they didn't like you anymore,
Maybe they'll find somebody they love
Yeah.
more, and that they
They
will
can
find
connect
their
with
people.
their family.
Connect with other people. Yeah, connect with other people. We make our families. I think that was hard. That was a hard lesson because so many people come and they're striving to find acceptance and love from their family, and they never will. You know, they don't need a psychic to tell them that. They just won't. They know it. And but they find their people, they find their tribe, and they connect, and there's love there. And that's wonderful. It really is all about love. Whether it's the love of a dog, the love of a good partner, or the love of spirits or angels or God, it's all about love. And it's there. So,
That's wonderful.
yeah, it's there. I got a lot of hope for I know people are very disturbed about like the election and what's happening with the world. Make your own world wonderful. What's going to happen is going to happen. But you've got to find light in your own little corner of the world. And just love.
Well, and people see opportunities
Yeah,
too.
they do. Yeah, they do.
You know, when the thing with Russia and the Ukraine
Oh my
started,
God, that was awful.
people started, warriors began heading for the Ukraine.
Yeah,
Because that was their path.
that's right.
And they just got on a plane and off they went. Oh my goodness, we're down 3
We're
months.
down to 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Wow, we are
Listen,
very heavy and deep and wonderful.
Tell Ellen, tell the world how they can reach you.
Oh, I have a shop called Fiona in Woodstock, but if you try to make an appointment, it's Susan Fiona Saxman at Gmail, and my assistant will make an appointment. Because I only see 1 or 2 people a day for my own mental state, it's kind of hard to get an appointment with me, but I am at the shop 6 days a week, and you can come in and talk or whatever.
And there are gifts to be purchased.
And there are crystals to be given by my dead husband,
Wow.
which he's still giving his crystals out through me.
That's
So
wonderful.
yeah, it's pretty much. And everybody, you know what the sweetest thing is when they take the crystal and they go, "Thank you, David." I know, that's just amazing, and they do,
That is
and it's
wonderful.
really beautiful. Yeah,
So that's worth going to the shop for right there.
yeah, right. So it's really good.
And we
Thank you.
have
Thank you, Ellen.
Ellen.
Thank you, Ellen.
very much, Ellen.
Thanks, Ellen.
You make our programs possible.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you,
you
Ellen.
so much.
Thank you, Ellen.